What you trying to do for real? For real.
Cosmic, psychedelic funk is what I came to do.
What's going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Nicole, aka the Identity Architect, and we're back for another episode of What's the Real Deal with Nicole. So I'm excited that you're tuning in. There's probably something else you could be doing: washing the dishes, walking the dog, surfing social media on your phone, but you're watching this show, so I'm thankful. So those of you who may not have a clue of who I am a 12-time author. I have my own consulting and publishing company. Most of all, I have my own TV network on the Voss TV network, where you can catch all things authorship, all things women. But today, let's talk about what we're doing today. So What's the Real Deal with Nicole is a simplistic show where we get to know the ins and outs of the people that we may have seen at a conference, heard on a radio show, or simply walk past them in Walmart and have no clue of what their story is. And so today I have Nicole Lewis, who is an author, a visionary, a speaker, and she's just super dope. So I'm gonna have her tell you everything about her. So welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're here. You guys, she's a busy person, so there's tons of things she can be doing, but she's spending time with us. So tell everyone a little bit about who Nicole Lewis is.
Well, I'm an author and a speaker. I've been speaking for over 15 years. Shared my life story for the very first time in front of a group of teenagers and watched that life transition and realized, okay, this is something that everybody needs to hear.
Yeah.
Whether you've experienced some of the things that I've experienced or know somebody that has experienced some of the things, how do you interact with them? A lot of that. Yeah. So I've taken that and kind of boomed it. I never thought I would be an author or a speaker. I was always that quiet person sitting in the back of the room. Launched my book in 2018, and I have been rolling ever since. So I also do etiquette training, personal development, and relationship development as well.
Love it, love it, love it. What I love about her is who you see today is who you'll see anytime you meet her. She is so consistent, and she has so many things to share, and she's soft-spoken, but this powerful boom, pam, pow powerhouse behind everything that she does. So we're gonna just dive into it. So authorship is my jam. I absolutely love being an author myself. There's so many ways for us to be able to help other people with the things that we've gone through personally, and I feel like authorship is one of those just extraordinary ways of sharing your story and being able to connect with other individuals. So let's get into this book that we have on the table, A Girl's Secrets, The Making of a Female Addict, right? I mean, just, the cover alone makes you want to rip it apart and get into it. So tell us a little bit about the backstory of how you arrived to, just the name of the title, and then, some of the things that people can experience when they're reading this book.
So my book is like, I started doing a presentation. I started doing my life story. I told my complete life story and realized it's a lot. It's kind of heavy. So I started off with my outline of that, kind of broke that down. And when I originally wrote my book, it was over 700 pages. It's a lot. And it was a lot to take in, especially because of the content of the book.
700 pages?
Yeah.
Wow.
We'd be looking at a totally different book.
Right, yeah.
And so originally, nobody else really knows this, but originally my original title was A Woman's Hostages. And it's because of all those things that I held on to, all my secrets that I was holding on to is what prevented me from finding love, being loved, knowing myself. I lost myself in that process. And so looking at it with my editor, we realized there was a great little breaking point. Because there's, this book takes you from age 5 up into 18. So it takes you all the way up to high school.
Yeah.
And graduating from high school. And then the second book, it's way more chaotic. So I'm excited for that one to be coming out. But the first one kind of takes you through the thought process. Why do people do the things that they do? Why do they make those decisions, those reactions? I was a mom at 13, and so how did that happen?
Yeah.
It wasn't through a rape situation or something like that. It was something I pursued.
Right.
My son's father was 14, and so what was the thought process? What was the things that took place? And it wasn't I wanted to make sure I didn't blame anybody.
Right.
Because there's that victim standpoint.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people take.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I just wanted to take a different approach.
Exactly.
Because emotionally and mentally, I always took a different approach to it.
Okay.
I've always been in control of myself, or at least I thought I was.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later. But I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a situation where, because of these things happening, well, this is why I ended up in the situation I ended up. It's really how I thought about myself, how my belief, my perception of the world, that's what took me into my addiction.
And you're saying so much, and first of all, the fact that you can call it an addiction and not feel embarrassed or ashamed, because a lot of times when we put a name to something and it might not be like the best name ever, we'll be like, is that really it? And the fact that you know that that's what that was. And so I love that you are so unapologetically real, and that's what we need in this world, to be able to heal and really set ourselves on the path that God has intended for us to really be on. And so just understanding how he uses everything. And when someone's like, oh, sex addiction, especially from the female standpoint, I really want us to dive into that because it's so good. So when was it when you realized that you were addicted to sex? And is that something that you saw in your childhood that made you addicted? Like, well, how did that work?
Sex for me was a place of comfort for a long time. And then it became a place of, that's where I thought my self-worth was.
Okay.
But my actual addiction actually didn't start. I can tell you the moment that it happened.
Wow.
So for me, I had a couple of partners up until this point. I was pregnant with my second child. My oldest two children are by the same guy. And I assumed God brought him back into my life, right?
Right.
Everything happened, everything aligned, and after 5 years, our kids are 5 years apart.
Okay.
After 5 years of not seeing him, God brings him into my life. So here I am, 6 months pregnant. We're supposed to be getting married. He's telling me how much he loves me, this and that. And then he flips the script on me. So he starts not coming home for 5 days straight.
Wow.
He comes around only when I get a welfare check or only when I get my paycheck. And I'm still engulfed in this idea of he loves me, because
Yes.
my idea of self-love and my idea of love, up until this point, and a little bit beyond, I didn't experience what love traditionally is. I was thrown away quite often, left to my own devices. And I really, truly raised myself from a very early age.
Wow.
So he came home one day, and he was leaving out, and we had this arrangement. Okay, so you're going to be gone for 5 days. I'm pregnant. I still want to have sex. So I'm like, look, you do whatever you're going to do, but just come back so we can have sex, right?
Yeah.
Because any woman who has been pregnant knows that drive increases.
I can only imagine. I've never had kids, and I've heard that happens. I'm like, oh, okay, really? Okay, wow.
And so he told me he didn't want me anymore. And so my thought was, I must not be lovable.
Yeah.
Somebody can't love me then. Well, what they do want is they want my body. And so that's what my mind clicked in that moment, that the person who I thought I loved, and I was doing all the wifely things like cooking and cleaning and doing all the things that I assumed that a wife should be.
Right.
Where he's out doing whatever he wants to do. And that's when my addiction took over. It took over from grief, from trauma, from lack of self-love, from lack of self-worth. And I try to pour into my kids as much as possible, but I still had to have my fix.
Yeah.
And so I'm got these random guys rotating out because I'm gonna get rid of you before you hurt me. And that's what my addiction became.
That's a whole lot, Nicole. The fact that you can pinpoint it to actually when it was that switch, you know, and understanding that it was addiction. So for someone out here who may feel that they are addicted to sex, what is that one thing that they need to do to start getting the healing they need to not be addicted to sex anymore? What does that look like?
So I went through a totally different process. There is the 12-step program. There's SA. There is SNON. There's
What do those acronyms stand for?
Sex Addiction Anonymous, Sex Addiction for Partners Anonymous. So
Wow.
yeah. So it's the same concept as the AA programs or the NA programs.
Okay.
I took a different route. Those didn't work for me.
Okay.
Counseling didn't work for me. I tried that as well. Celibacy worked for me. So, long story short, we'll get into that at another time.
Yeah.
How I ended up in that space. But I had to confront myself. And it was a situation where the person that I was being confronted with was in such a place of light and peace and was working on themselves that they said, let's do this together.
Wow. So so much. I hope you guys are really letting this sink in. First of all, it's a very vulnerable topic to even talk about, right? And so when you were able to identify when you were addicted to sex, how long did it actually take you to no longer be addicted?
So oddly enough, I met, so in case I didn't mention, been married for almost 20 years.
Doesn't she look amazing, y'all? She don't even look like she can even, I mean, she looks phenomenal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I met my husband in September. Right before that, I had lost custody of my kids. I was homeless. I had hit rock bottom.
Okay.
And my rock bottom is different. One of the biggest things is you're not going to come out of any addiction until you hit rock bottom. It doesn't matter how many times that you go through treatment, how many times you go through things, you have to hit your rock bottom. And your rock bottom is different for every person.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's good information just right there to be able to digest that, because a lot of times people want to define what somebody else's rock bottom is. And when people are defining what somebody else's rock bottom is, they are nowhere near in that place where they're trying to define somebody else's. Like, they have no clue what it's like. So, you know, I think that's important that you share that. Like, that was your rock bottom. Oh gosh, this is powerful, guys. Oh my God. Ooh. Yes.
So I had a situation happened. I had left one of my regulars. At this time, I had a regular rotation of guys. And so my rotation, I had a guy who I called my 2-hour guy. And he was the one that would spend the most time in that process of having sex with me. And so I come to expect that from him. So when I needed my long-term or a longer fix, that's who I go see. And he became a short 5 minutes, got up, walked away and said, oh, you can have, and we was at like, I think there was like a party going on because there was other couples and other things going on. He's like, well, you can have any one of these guys. I was like, first off, I didn't think anybody could see my addiction, because sex addiction is not something that you can just look in and see.
Yeah.
Somebody who is really struggling with sex addiction, it takes a long time for it to be outright visible. It takes a lot. Most of the time it's done in the dark and nobody can tell. Majority of the people that I was around would never know that I was having a sex addiction.
Wow.
But it was like it was exposed in that moment. So I leave, I'm calling him, I'm cussing him out over the phone. How dare you, you know, whatever.
Right.
And so as I'm cussing him out, I'm not paying attention. I'm driving. Not a good idea, but I'm driving and I'm mad because I still want to have sex. So I'm driving and I'm driving real slow. This other car comes around and cuts me off. And he notices I'm cussing somebody out on the phone, and he's like, well, what's going on with, you know? And I just said, I want to have sex. Because I'm still heated,
You're
right?
still mad, right?
So I ended up following this guy to his house. Had never met him, don't know his name, barely knows what he looks like. Go up to his house, we have sex. I leave, and it still hasn't, so I write a thank you for a good time, Nikki letter on his nightstand.
Wow.
I leave and I have to come back because I thought I left my wallet at his house. It hit me in that moment. I couldn't tell you what he looked like. I couldn't tell you his name. I could tell you where he stayed at because I'm really good with directions.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother reason behind that, but I'm pretty good at recognizing where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I realized that's something men do. Women don't do a thank you for a good time letter on the nightstand and leave out. I said,
Right.
something's wrong with me.
And that's when you were kind of like, wow.
And this was also around the time where Tiger Woods was starting to come out and other celebrities were starting to come out about their sex addiction. And I was listening to the radio and I was like, that's what I'm struggling with. That's the name of it. That's what it is.
Wow. Wow. Listen, so I'm not going to ask her any more questions about the sex addiction. Y'all just need to get the book. Just go buy the book and learn about all things Nicole Lewis and what she went through and the making of a female addict. Like, I'm done. I'm mind blown. And so I appreciate the vulnerability because a lot of times people don't want to talk about what they've been through to this extent. And God has done so much work on you. It's evident. I mean, you can laugh about your note that you left on the nightstand, you know. we can laugh about that now. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a laughing moment at that time. So, you know, just thankful for all of that. And there's people out here who probably have no idea what they're addicted to and watching this show and be like, oh, that's me. So if there's anybody out there that has really been able to recognize that they're addicted to sex just by listening to you for these short moments, what would you tell them, like the first step that they probably need to make sure that they conquer?
I would say definitely take a look at Google sex addiction.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be one idea. Another one is just acknowledgement. One of the biggest things about sex addiction is it's done in secrecy.
Yeah.
It's more of a taboo than being addicted to drugs, than being addicted to alcohol.
Yeah.
Because it's more silent.
Right.
You know? Even if I was addicted to food, you would see me eating.
Yeah.
Even if I was bulimic, if I was anorexic, you would see the residuals.
Right.
Sex addiction, you do not.
That makes so much sense, Nicole. Like, I never thought of it like that, but that makes so much sense. So listen, so we're gonna go and make sure that you guys learn all things Nicole in this show real quick, but she'll be another guest that I have to bring back because there's just so much that's transpiring in her life. Let's talk about you being this speaker and this advocacy coach for women. Like, how did we evolve from being the sex addict into the speaker, into this amazing, phenomenal example for women? So I absolutely love everything she does, but we don't have time to talk about everything. So let's go into this a little bit.
Like I said before, my first time ever speaking, it was in front of 150 youth and about 30 teachers and adults. So it was that response, and every response that I get every time that I speak, that keeps me speaking and keeps me telling my truth, because it allows people the freedom to speak theirs.
Yes, and yes. So let's back up. If you have a speaking engagement, you're sharing and telling. So did someone just kind of like, hey, I have this opportunity, I want you to speak? How did you even arrive at accepting the opportunity to speak, because a lot of times when we've been through different things, we wrestle with that. We wrestle with first of all, we wrestle with the fact that people want to hear what we have to share because of what we went through. And so then it's, okay, so you went through that, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. So how were you approached to do such a
So
thing?
I would say definitely don't speak on a topic that you haven't healed on first.
Yes. I tell people this all of the time. Come on. I love it.
Because it becomes triggering not only for you, but for your audience.
Yeah.
And if you're not healed from it, then you can't help the audience.
No.
What ends up happening is you end up having what they call a trauma bond.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
You can't walk somebody through a healing journey and you yourself haven't walked through
Absolutely
that.
not. Absolutely
So I didn't do my first presentation until 2008. Me and my husband met in 2004. So there was a lot of work that I did in that period on healing with my journey.
Yeah.
So.
We think so much alike. This is why we get along. So one of the things that you said is really important, because I teach my clients this all the time when it comes to writing books. I tell them, do not write a book that's a tell-all. Don't do that unless you're completely healed from what you're telling. And so I think of it, I'm going to take us back through Black history, but I think about Civil Rights Days, especially in Birmingham, because you can Google it and look it up. Bull O'Connor, and he was really big on taking the fire hose and just, as these Black people were riding through the streets of Birmingham, and just firing it on them and just watching them fall. Yes, there's footage. I have to get it to you. But you guys, Google Bull O'Connor, Google Birmingham, Alabama through the Civil Rights time, you'll find it. And so when I think about when we are sharing from any aspect that we're not healed from, I always have that image in my head where we're literally spewing on the people that we're supposed to be helping to heal, because we're not coming from a healed place. And so if we're knocking somebody down with our words, there's no way that they could actually hear what we need for them to hear for the transformation to take place. So we can't. We have to be healed to be able to share effectively. There's just no way. And so when you said that, I absolutely agree. And we all have a purpose and a call. I mean, your purpose might be to share, but make sure that you're healed and you're coming from a healed place. So you got the speaking engagement, and then you evolve into this person who teaches these kids, these amazing women, or these amazing young girls about adequacy, which that's taboo, especially in the African American community. So how do we evolve to that?
So if you haven't noticed, I love heels.
Yes.
So
I wish you could get those heels are bad. I mean, they're super bad, and she rocks them really well. Anyways, sorry.
So I was a dancer as part of my past, and so I fell in love with heels. I'm short. I'm 5'2", and so I always wanted to be tall.
Yeah.
Well, heels make us taller.
Yeah.
So I started off with doing a presentation first on heels. So I go over the history of heels. I go over the styles of heels. I go how to select your heels appropriately. I go over heel hacks. I go over a lot in that one class. It's a 2-hour class that I do, and that one kind of sprungboard into the next phase.
I love it.
So I grew up not necessarily having a consistent woman in my life. Even though my mom was kind of in and out a lot, I had a lot of different types of women that was in and out of my life.
Yeah.
So we get those, hey, girls don't wear this, girls don't do that, girls don't do this. Well, then as my daughter was growing up, I now have another generation of a young lady to teach.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about what are the things that I want to make sure that I can pass on to her. But if you're a parent, you understand you can't tell your kid anything. You have to tell their friends, and then their friends will influence them.
Whatever reason, but yeah, I get that, yeah.
So that's kind of where Habits of a Queen started from. And then I started looking at other women, even my age. There was things that I didn't learn until my husband told me about it.
Wow.
So
wow.
We should know these things.
Yeah.
And so my idea is to prepare you not only for life, but to be a wife.
That's so amazing. I told you guys, there's so many things that this woman does, and she's so poised and cute, and so powerful, all of the same. So tell people how they can follow you, how they can connect with you, especially for your classes that you do. What does that look like?
You can definitely reach me on Facebook, Nicole Lewis. You can also email me at nlewisauthor@gmail.com. You can also reach me via phone. I normally don't give out my phone number, but I'm going to do it today. So my number is 402-813-4459.
Wow.
You can also reach me through my website, which is NicoleLewis.com. And those are, the majority of the time, that's how you reach me.
I love that you gave your phone number out. I mean, because this topic that we're talking about isn't one where people can go to their mom or their aunt, their uncle, and say, hey, I think I'm addicted to sex. I need some type of help. And then there might be the parents out here who are watching and want their daughter to be involved in understanding what it looks like to be a queen. I mean, we don't talk about that enough, and how important it is for us, especially as African American women, to own who we are as queens. And so one of the things I want to talk about very quickly before the show's over, what would you say to someone who is looking to take the next leap in life, but kind of scared because of the baggage that they have held on to for so long?
I would say this was actually the main reason I wrote my book. So I wrote my book to start conversations. There is nothing in this book that somebody else I'll say it like this. I have hit every statistic.
Wow.
I have been, I was charged with attempted murder and willful injury at one point in my life. So I spent some time, very short period of time, but I did spend some time behind bars. I was raped at gunpoint at a very early age. I've been in a number of different situations. So it's a great way to have a conversation outside of yourself. Hey, so-and-so, I've read this part in this book. Like, let's say, for instance, like A Crazy Nobody, right? Which is one of the chapters in my book. Hey, I read this chapter, and she was talking about this situation, and what do you think about that? It opens up the dialogue so that it's not you saying, hey, I experienced this. You know, you can kind of gauge the temperature of the conversation by having an external example.
That's so powerful. So where can people grab your book? Where is that located?
It is on Amazon, and it is at the African American Bookstore.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a phenomenal, life-changing opportunity for her to even be here to share her life, her story with all of us. So thank you so much for your time, your energy. Thank you for choosing to be healed, because healing's a choice. Healing's a choice. So Nicole, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. This has been another episode of What's the Real Deal with Takara Nicole, and we're out. Peace out. Much love.
What you trying to do for real? For real.
Cosmic psychedelic funk is what I came to do. Yep.